and this is Thomas Grant. We are up here in Lakeview, Ohio, to interview the former mayor. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ryan Shoffstall. Served 20 years, 5 months, and then before that I had 3 years and 7 months, and council elected in '99 and took seat in 2000. So when I took over, it was during an event that was a flooding event, and with the resignation, that's how I became mayor, as I was council president at the time, and I've served since then. So I want to say that, of all the people that I've served with over the years, council members, employees, I've had the greatest respect for all of them. Never have had an issue with anybody. We've never always agreed, but we always were able to come to a compromise on what was best for the village. So to see what's going on right now, for one, with the recovery from the tornado, I have all the respect in trying to get those things accomplished, both individually and for the village. I hope the best, and I know that eventually things will come out and what they need to do as far as operation and stuff. I do want to say that the stuff that's been in the public, it's disheartening to see that. Over the years, we'd have discourse once in a while, but it was, seems to have heightened beyond anything that I've witnessed in the time that in the 24 years that I was with the village government. So
it's got to be pretty frustrating for you, I imagine.
It is. I grew up here. Grew up on a small farm outside of Lakeview, and when I went to college and was planning on coming back, I had opportunities where I could have taken a job elsewhere, but this is home. This has always been home, and I chose to come back here to be here to serve the people in my community, and established roots and bought my I've owned 3 properties, and all 3 of them have been in the village of Lakeview. So
wow. How old were you when you started serving your community?
So I would have been 2000, so it would have been 26. Yeah, 26.
Wow. So you were a young man. You weren't some old grizzled veteran getting into public service. You were a pretty young guy.
I was, and there's a lot to learn in the position of village government. You still have all the laws that you have to abide by, but the thing is, it's about serving the community and seeing things, and I've always been one that when I saw where I think I could help, I've always been able to jump in with both feet. It's not about words, it's about deeds to me. So for people who do serve, I have admiration for them, because a lot of times it's a thankless job. I mean, we're a small community, and to know your neighbors and to serve with them and be friends with them, it's an honor to serve with all those and over the years.
Right, and to be clear, for people who may not know, you didn't lose your re-election campaign last year. You decided to retire from being mayor, correct?
I did. I chose not to run. Last year was a tough year. We had a couple of things in my life that it was just put some things into perspective that I needed to be able to be there for. It's one of those things, I felt that I had a duty when I took the position that I needed to be there. So, I would miss my kids' ball games, or seriously sick, and I don't want to go into anything personal there, but that sort of led to the thing that I had to be here for council purposes when she was in an ER at Nationwide Hospital. So that sort of led to some of those decisions that I needed to step away, at least for the time being, until. So I chose not to run.
Okay, Okay, so and Mayor, the now Mayor Elaine Moore, she did run uncontested. She didn't have an opponent. Is that that is correct, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So she took over January 1st of 2024. So she just recently assumed this position.
Yes.
Now, did you see the statement released today by the Village of Lakeview? Did you read it?
I have read the statement.
Do you have feelings about that statement?
I believe that there's several inaccuracies in the statement. Looking through, it's disheartening that some of the information in there implicates that maybe I did not do my job when I was sitting as mayor. That hurts a little bit, because looking at it and saying, no, that's not how it was, or there's just information in there. It was disheartening to see that, because that was not the case. I worked well with the council. The council that sits now is actually the council that was there when I was there. So we all made the same decisions together. And I'm not saying it's nothing. This was put out by the new village solicitor. So with that statement, I don't hold anyone accountable for that as far as those on the council and stuff, but it was disheartening to see some of the information that was on there. So
okay, so would it be okay with you if we go through that statement and you can let us know if there's anything you would like to interject as we read it?
Yeah, that'd be fine, I think.
Okay. So I'm just going to start from the top, Mr. Shoffstall, and we'll go from there. And here is the statement. The Village of Lakeview staff and elected officials continue working long, diligent hours to passionately serve their beloved Lakeview community. The mission: serve Lakeview residents and businesses burdened with rebuilding in the wake of the all-too-recent tornado. This mission will feel easier for Lakeview's public servants, as staff now have a place to report to work. Government operations are temporarily housed at 130 East Lake Street in Lakeview. All are grateful the village quickly received authorization for rent payments to be covered as part of its property damage claim. And the village is excited its community will continue to be served by its former neighbor, the Lakeview Branch Library, which was located next to the municipal building, another municipal-owned building claimed by the F3 tornado. The two will remain neighbors, with the library temporarily housed across the street from its 165 East Lake Street Unit B. A benevolent commercial property owner leased its space to the library at no cost. People in the community are pulling together to help their local government rebuild Lakeview stronger and better. Mayor Elaine Moore, new to public service, but with over 45 years of insurance industry experience, including over 2 decades of managerial leadership, is a strong and compassionate leader, rightly calling for accountability in all of aspects of Lakeview's government operation. States Council President Randy Kaler said, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yes.
Kaler. Recently, a few Indian Lake community members have taken to social media, leveling unsustained accusations at the mayor and village council. The 2024 regularly scheduled council meeting. While the mayor did not ask for or otherwise threaten Spring's employment, Spring was the subject of an investigation under the former mayor, Ryan Shoffstall, that lasted approximately 30 months for unknown reasons. To suggest problems boiled to the surface because of Mayor Moore is seated as mayor is simply wrong. Now,
okay, if I'd like to address that a little bit. So the statement is, accusations. I've had several phone calls from people, and it's all been more towards the mayor and the direction and management style regarding that. I have not heard anybody say anything about council members per se. So just to address that as far as people saying it to me and some of the stuff. I'd like to address the part where regarding the 30 months for unknown reasons. Actually, and you'll come to this here in a little bit, but I think I need to address it. So, the investigation was started due to the resignation of our assistant fire chief, Dan Deffenbaugh. He tendered his resignation in February of 2023. So that was just over a year ago. Once he made that resignation, reasons being within the resignation, we did start a investigation. The investigation was stemmed around basically workplace environment. People throw out the words hostile environment. Unfortunately, yes, we do have maybe a couple that might fall under that, but discrimination has to be a part of workplace environment. So when we went through, as myself, a number of council members, our village administrator being part, since he's sits as one of the additional, even though he has, he's basically an equal with our fire chief and our fiscal officer. But with that, so we went through and we looked at, maybe a toxic environment had been created within the department, that there was some serious allegations being done there. So that is what our investigation stemmed around. We ended up talking with all fire department personnel, went through, and then we'll get into it here in a little bit, because when it starts addressing certain things that the council and myself at the time made recommendations for the fire department. So it was never 30 months. Actually, it was brought to head when I was first notified with the resignation of our previous assistant chief.
Okay. And you said that investigation was completed in roughly 2 months.
Yes, it was 2 months, because actually in April is when we came back with our recommendations.
So the statement that they put out, approximately 30-month investigation for unknown reasons, you have no idea what they're referencing.
I do not.
Okay. All right, I'm going to continue if that's okay with you.
Yeah, thank you.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
Here we go. Ohio's statutory villages operate with an administrator form of government. Like Lakeview, they can statutory villages, the administrator, fiscal officer, police chief, and fire chief, if operating a police and fire department, report to the mayor. The village administrator is charged with managing the daily operations. The mayor oversees her direct reports and keeps council well informed on village operations. Only the 6 village council members vote on legislation. The mayor does not vote on legislation unless there is a tie. In that case, the mayor can cast the tie-breaking vote. For those who understand and follow the public business conducted by Lakeview Village Council, they would know that Mayor Fagan Moore, to date, has not been called to cast the tie-breaking vote. Before Mayor Fagan Moore took office, Assistant Fire Chief Dan Deffenbaugh resigned, and the reasons underlying that resignation ignited an investigation into the leadership of the fire department. Former Chief Spring claims that the investigation resulted in no action against him. Incorrect. On April 17th, 2023, former Mayor Shoffstall and Village Council presented Spring with a 2-page document ordering him to start disciplining his staff in private, outside the watchful eye of other members in the public. To build individual and collective morale of the members, and to reestablish trust among the department members, which seemed to have been eroding. It does not end there. Spring is ordered to establish and implement modern-day policies to govern the fire department operations. Former Chief Spring failed during his tenure as fire chief to take accountability to establish proper policy as mandated by Ohio law to protect the lives of its firefighters and community. The last set of undated policies implemented by Lakeview's fire department under Spring's command is so old it appears to be printed on dot matrix printer. Notably absent from its harassment/workplace bullying policy are steps to complain about the chief. Shoffstall's investigation also revealed training protocols and schedules were found to be lacking. Is there anything you'd like to?
So I'm going to go. So within the recommendations that we addressed, part of that was that, we did recognize that regarding, discipline, admonishment of, I understand a lot of the events that we were informed about was when situations were on scene, so it was out in the public. So part of our recommendation is it needs to be at the proper time. Now I understand that safety is a major involvement, and when he sees someone not doing something, either would have been the improper way of doing something or something it would have been, I know that he, being the commander on scene, would be the one that would notify that firefighter that, hey, you need to do it. Now how it was done, I was never on scene to see that, but there was some complaints there. Regarding the training protocol, they do continuous training. Now within our recommendations, one of the things is we've gotten to a point where paper documentation is necessary and needed in time. So there was a standard operating guidelines as well as standard operating procedures that we had requested them to update at that time. Let me see. In that hierarchy, that was our suggestion. So he had already started the process of appointing his two command, when you have complaints about someone who's higher up than you, you need to go to the next step. So those are the things that were part of that recommendation as far as establishing the hierarchy, and also with determining, who would be the scene commander. Mm-hmm. So that was something that was always in place, but not on paper. As far as a lot of times it was the senior firefighter on scene. So whoever had served the longest at the time, and we have a lot of long-term serving firefighters, so that was one of the things. So we were putting it more in protocol and creating a paper trail that was not done. A lot of these things were in place, but it was putting it on paper that needed to be updated, and we felt was to meet the times. It's the procedures were there. It was just a matter of put them down on paper. If this is what you need to do when you take a truck out, who's the one that takes the truck? What's the protocol as far as how that is?
Can I read a certain segment here?
Yes.
I want to get a direct statement from you if you can. And here, about a little more than halfway down, it says, former Chief Spring failed during his tenure as fire chief to take accountability to establish proper policy as mandated by Ohio law to protect the lives of his firefighters and community. That statement's pretty damning. Do you have any idea what they would be referring to, or do you not agree with that assessment?
I do not agree with that assessment. Our firefighters are dedicated. We have had, we have a board that would, it's never met because we've never had somebody who has been seriously injured on a fire. We've had certain times where just because of either exhaustion, because of the heavy equipment that they wear and stuff like that. But as far as true injuries, they had a very good record as far as the safety. They trained all the time as far as how to use pumps. other types of extractions. I know that they did yearly training as far as they've been out to Boofer's elevator before, as far as how to extract people from grain elevators, because we are an agricultural community and there's dangers of that. So I do not believe that he failed in making sure that we had a well-trained and proper procedures for safety.
And just out of curiosity, we didn't talk prior, but the statement kind of insinuates that maybe there's been lives of the community lost to fire recently. Is that do you know if there's been a loss of life due to a house fire recently that you think could be related to Chief Springs?
In our area, I do not know of any.
I just don't know what they're actually referring to when they talked about protecting the lives of firefighters in the community. If you state the firefighters haven't been injured, seriously injured on a job, and to your memory, there's no loss of life recently from a fire. Just an interesting, I guess, antidote there. I don't know what they're referring to there.
I'm sorry, I don't know either.
You don't know either. Yeah, of course you don't. It's okay to go ahead and move on to the next paragraph. Here we go. It says, worse yet, the 2-page document holds Spring accountable to reestablish the implementation of a proper chain of command. Fire departments are parliamentary organizations. They live and die under the chain of command. Not only was the chain of command absent under Spring, but Spring was also told under former Mayor Shoffstall that he was failing to properly report to the mayor and the village council to obtain proper legislative approval needed before the chief could legally purchase equipment and before the chief could legally sell obsolete village department equipment. Would you like to respond to that?
So the only situation that I can think of over the years was that I believe a different department. So when you take a piece of equipment out of service, it cannot be used for that same purpose before as it was. So a tanker can't be used as a tanker. Engines can't be used as engines. So there was another department, I believe, at the time, and this is through recall. So it's been a number of years back, but that was a piece of equipment that was given to a different department that they could use it for a different purpose. Fire trucks are expensive. A lot of departments around here, we've been very fortunate that Norm, was able to, and through his work with the firefighters, we have very good equipment, in my opinion. That was one of the things that I was pretty proud of, is that, the engine was pretty much designed. We used local, or not local, but they're out of Lima or Findlay, as far as a fabricator, to be able to create our rescue, which replaced one that was almost 35, 40 years old, which was a converted bread truck. So that, the engine, the equipment that we have, all of that stuff, through working with a grant writer, we was able to get it, a couple of our pieces of equipment through grants. A lot of our CBAs we was able to obtain through grants. Those are, it's expensive equipment for a fire department.
Right, especially a smaller one like this. Now I want to quote this one direct part again and see if you remember saying this. It said, Chief Spring was told under former Mayor Shoffstall that he was failing to properly report to the mayor and village council, to obtain proper legislative approval. Do you remember making that statement to the chief at the time or not?
I don't. So there was situations in the past. Council always approved purchasing after the fact. So. He was able to repair that. So he saved the village thousands of dollars in repair costs but it was one of those things. He would be out working on it on a weekend. He would go pick up the piece of equipment that needed to replace it, and then turn in a bill afterwards. It did not follow the things that we did, but council always did approve any of those purchases because he would bring the bills, and then council would approve them at the next council meeting.
Okay, so is it okay with you if we move to the next?
So, and that's fine. And basically, that was just another thing that we recommended, that we need to follow the proper protocol. So instead of saying, seeing it, it's getting up to, I guess, current times that you see a problem. Yes, it puts something out of commission for the time being, but you still needed to come to council to get approval for those.
Received other complaints about him from command staff. So she asked to be provided accountability on items identified under her predecessor's tenure. For those who are labeling this as micromanaging, let it be known the mayor, council, and administrator are aligned that the Lakeview Fire Department will be properly rebuilt, will operate under a new chain of command, will operate under modern-day policy and guidelines fully compliant with state and federal legal mandates, and that the firefighters will be properly trained and promoted. A robust recruiting program will also be created. Administrator Dave Scott has lined up highly respected resources to bring order to the fire department. Is there anything you'd like to say concerning that?
It goes back that he wasn't following up. That I have to disagree with. We would not be receiving the grants that he was able to write and receive if we were not following the guidelines. We have certain things each year that we have to follow. We have to have all of our ladders tested every year. We have our our air tanks, our equipment, all has to be tested each year to follow. All of those protocols were done each year. And he made sure that it was done and complete, and that none of our equipment was ever put out of service. So, same thing with proper training. They train all the time. They train on every scenario and stuff like that. One of the things that we within the letter, which did address training, because we had a changeover of training officers in that time frame during the investigation, one of the things that we discussed is that, there was a question with a previous trainer that they did a lot of repetitious training. So due to that, we wanted to see him set up a schedule. So it wasn't as if that they were lacking in the training, but to set up a schedule so that, training has to be done for reinforcing what you already know, but also training for new techniques and stuff like that. So that was just, I think, part of the recommendation from council and myself, that to get something a little more in line so that we can see, here's a training and stuff like that. They would also go outside. They have other departments that always are offering training, so they'll send a whole crew over to get training there during the course of the year and stuff. So
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the way I read this, they're saying they're going to operate at this new department under, fully compliant with state and federal legal mandates. From your understanding, it was always following federal legal mandates.
Yes.
And state legal mandates. And it said that the firefighters will be properly trained and promoted. And it's your understanding they have always been properly trained.
Yes.
And or promoted?
As I said, we did have some holes in the hierarchy. So was that due to people not being promoted properly, or we'd have people who were in a position who would resign from that position because they didn't want the particular duties. So I can't speak to that part as saying, okay, that was a failure or not as far as the promotional part.
Okay. All right, Appreciate that. All right, if it's okay with you, I'll move on.
Okay.
It is true that Spring was placed on paid administrative leave for a short time in February under Mayor Fagan Moore's tenure to allow for an impartial investigation to learn whether Spring was correcting the many deficiencies identified by former Mayor Shoffstall's administration. He was returned to work after questions were answered, good, bad, or otherwise. When the tornado struck, Mayor Fagan Moore put this subject on the back burner because the village needed all hands on deck to respond to the natural disaster and to protect and serve the people and businesses. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Since it was outside of my tenure, there's nothing I have to add for that.
We will move on. The next paragraph starts, firefighting is a calling. One must be a treasured and respected in the community. These are the people who sign up to run, and when the rest of us are desperately running out. The emotional health of the fire department under Mayor Fagan Moore is paramount. She called a staff meeting on Sunday, April 21st, 2024. No village official called a press conference. This was misinformation. While a few accuse her of wanting to dismantle the department, her actions strikingly prove otherwise. The violation of her direct order for all recording devices to be turned off at this sensitive meeting, where HIPAA-protected information was to be shared by first responders in a safe place for the emotional and physical well-being of the fire department rank and file, is a true tragedy. It is well established that the emotional health of first responders requires a safe space for sharing, and the outlets for emotional healing must be provided to those selfless public servants. I think that's pretty, nothing to add there.
No.
We'll move on to the next one. Spring demonstrates he has no respect for HIPAA-protected information by publicly discussing his predecessor's health information during a recent interview posted online. Whoever recorded and disseminated the fire department staff meeting demonstrated the same. It is a breach of privilege and trust. Those days are over, and Lakeview is moving forward and upward. Staff meetings are not public meetings, never have been, and will remain private. To be clear, they are not open to the public or the press. A non-quorum number of council can legally attend staff meetings. Do you have anything to say about that a little first?
The only thing with that is that, and I don't know if this falls under staff meeting or even a committee. So even if a committee meets, it has to be at least advertised that they're having a meeting. Not that, it's, and it's, I'd have to look back on the actual ORC code, but, and I have to admit, I was corrected on this a number of years ago by our she brought it to our attention that, we need to at least advertise these meetings, that they are open to the public. If you're regarding, staff meetings, those are a different thing, but anytime that there's potential decisions that could be affected, those committee meetings are to be advertised. So,
Okay.
So that was something that was brought to my attention a number of years ago, which we've always had an open door policy. Very seldom, if it was staff meeting, it was the department heads with their department head with their employees.
Okay.
So that this is I can't speak to anything regarding HIPAA violations or not by Mr. Spring. I don't know the whole outcome or the reasoning why the transition was when he became chief. So.
All right, so now if you this is just you guessing, but if you were mayor at this time and you had a meeting like that to talk to your first responders, what would have been the procedure for you? Would that have been posted? Would that have been talked about in the public? Is that normally?
I'm still trying. For me, I'm still trying to find out, or still trying to understand what the purpose of the meeting was. If it was just for the fire department to discuss the events, or if it was something like that, that's different. Usually you have there's support counselors that you bring in, and you bring them in, and a lot of times they'll do group or they'll do individual interviews. Meeting, that was not something that was, discussed, and not saying it needed to be.
Right.
But
if the business of that meeting was more than just that, it might have fallen under a different category.
correct.
Okay. So if it's okay with you, I'll move forward.
Okay.
It says here, to further set the record straight, Spring failed to report the incoming tornado. He reportedly videoed heading into town from the firehouse to the Logan County Emergency Agency, otherwise known as the EMA. Point of fact, when Administrator Dave Scott called Logan County EMA Director Helen Norris at 8:15 p.m. on March 15th, 2024 to ask her why her agency had yet to provide services for Lakeview, her response tells it all. Scott will not forget her words. She said, "Norm never called me," meaning Spring asked for no service from Logan County EMA. Would you like to comment to that?
This is something that we've had several instances. I believe that, and I believe that he did contact her. I believe that conversation, I think that's portrayed in it incorrectly. I know that I was in contact with Helen Norris that night so that she could contact administrative to cover that. I did stop out the firehouse that night, probably about 11:30 or something, just to check on the firefighters. Chief Spring and the head of the Coast Guard Auxiliary were in the communication room, fielding communication back and forth as far as if the section was cleared or stuff like that. So, but Norm knows protocol. He knows who to contact. I believe that he did contact her that night.
Okay.
So,
and just to be clear, this is not associated with this interview, but we are going to reach out to EMA Director Helen Norris and try to contact her and get a comment directly from her about this. So it's a little more clear. So if it's okay with you, we'll move forward.
okay.
So that said, it has been confirmed by local first responding agencies, the Logan County Sheriff's Office, and the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association Emergency Response System, all offered and supported Lakeview's response efforts starting as early as 9:36 p.m. The evening of the tornado. If Chief Spring believed he needed additional resources to best serve Lakeview, all he needed to do was ask, because additional Ohio law mandates that Chief Spring provide an adequate number of personnel to safely conduct emergency scene operations. Ohio Administrative Code, and it gives the number there. Let's look over to the next page. It likewise remains unknown why Chief Spring accused the mayor of wrongdoing related to the village's tornado response. Spring was in charge, Ohio Administrative Code, and there's numbers. That said, the law nor the mayor also mandates that she is his boss. Do hire revised code sections 737.22. On March 17th, Mayor Fagan Moore asked her subordinate, Chief Spring, for a basic update on his response to the disaster. Village Administrator Scott, who was also charged with the management of the fire department under Ohio law, have an understanding as to why Spring refused to provide the mayor with an update, and neither have an understanding as to why law enforcement was dispatched to this meeting. Is there anything you'd like to
So that sort of falls a little misleading. Yes, Chief Spring would have been her subordinate, but hers alone. Basically, the way the hierarchy is. So in a disaster situation, depending on what the situation is, the fire chief is the lead. Nobody is below him at that situation unless a coroner takes over, because they need to have access to the scene and then they control the scene. So during the rescue or the search and rescue and the initial response, he would have been chief. Now, as far as Administrator Scott, as far as the hierarchy is established, he is not. He falls in the same line of order as the fire chief, police chief, which we don't have a police chief here, but our fiscal officer and administrator are all on the same hierarchy line. So the mayor is the top as far as administration, and then you have those four particular offices. Now, if we were in a city and we had an appointed safety service director, that would be a different hierarchy. So it's the mayor, safety service director, and then all your department heads.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different within a village as far as that's concerned. So, as far as discussion or, what happened in this particular meeting, I can't answer to that. But I know that, based on Ohio Revised Code and even the sections that they state, it is mayor appoints with council approval. Everything's with council approval as far as that. But the mayor is the one that administrates based on the approvals and legislation that the council passes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is it okay? We'll go ahead and move on?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, the next paragraph starts, the village's focus from the moment the storm hit is to present to the present remains serving the community that grieves the loss of human life, shelter, and an overall sense of security for its citizens. While unrest for a few appears to exist following Spring's recent voluntary resignation, Chief Spring is free to resign like any other employee. It's a personal choice, and one village council respected. Mayor Fagan Moore has this to say. Council accepted his resignation as well as other firefighters, and we move forward. In life, we are tasked to do the right thing, to be held accountable, and to make personal choices. I made a conscious decision to run for mayor. I have no control over anybody who elected to run or not run against me. I love my village. I have a deep desire to serve in the civic capacity. This is my home, and I'm extremely excited to rebuild our community with our governing council body and residents. Lakeview is strong and open for business. You're pretty good with that.
Yep,
And we're getting close to the end. It says the public is invited to the council's regularly scheduled meeting, which will be conducted May 6, 2024 at 6 p.m. at its new temporary municipal building located at 130 East Lake Street, Lakeview. During this meeting, the village council will deliberate and vote on Mayor Fagan Moore's recommendation for the appointment of Assistant Chief Josh Oakley as Lakeview Fire Department's interim fire chief. Mayor Fagan Moore is recommending an interim appointment to allow the village adequate time to conduct a search for the village's next fire chief, who will operate the department with respect up and down the chain of command, transparency to the mayor and village council, and a positive, cooperative spirit with neighboring departments. Working together will benefit not only the village but the entire Indian Lake community, village administration. Mayor Fagan Moore and village council remain committed to protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the community and in ensuring that its taxpayers' dollars are wisely allocated to accomplish this important mission. Do you have anything to add to that? Or
I hope that if they are appointing Assistant Chief Josh Oakley, I hope that they can have him as one of their considerations. It's the appointment of fire chief. Obviously, you'd have to accept them as to become a member of the fire department before you could promote them to that position. So, him being a longtime volunteer firefighter with the department, he was appointed as assistant chief. I think that there was reasons why he was appointed, even though, it alludes in there that there was some contention between the chief and the assistants during this. I hope that, if that's going to be the case and he has been promoted as the interim chief, that he will be a consideration for full chief if they feel that he's qualified for the interim position.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the proper advancement from within the department that they referred to earlier. So if they would kind of follow that guideline, you would think he would be in the front runner
you
for
would
that
think.
position.
I hope so, if that's the case. So,
and we will finish it out real quick here. Lakeview residents and businesses should rest assured that emergency services will continue to be provided. Currently, the Lakeview Fire Department is staffed by 2 assistant chiefs and 6 volunteers. It is well supported by neighboring jurisdictions through mutual aid. Over half of Ohio's registered fire departments are volunteer, according to recent data collected by the Division of State and Fire Marshal. And that is their entire statement.
Well, I know that with mutual aid, I know that the statement there at the end regarding the safety. I don't think people need to be concerned that they're not going to get a response. With Indian Joint, Huntsville Fire, you've got Wayne Township, which is Waynesfield area, Roundhead. I mean, I know that a lot of departments, you never know what you're going to get, especially with all these departments being volunteer. Mm-hmm. So mutual aid is always called on most runs because you need to know. I don't see that that's going to change.
Okay, well, and that's a good thing. We've heard lots of good things about the fire department up here, and just in this area. It seems like emergency services, very good, very professional, very well trained, and they do a good job. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this statement?
I wanted to clear up some points that were made on here that were a little bit inaccurate. But the main thing is, I wish everybody well. It's just, going through the tornado is one thing. That's devastating. But to have contention within your different departments or whatnot, this is not a time for that right now. They should have been completely geared towards recovery. I don't know all the details. Obviously, I'm no longer mayor, so I don't know all the ins and outs and everything going on. Obviously, I don't like to spread hearsay. So like I said, I had people coming to me, here's what it is, here, I tried to correct some of the things that have been, provided in this letter from the current solicitor. So I wish all of them the best. I hope that, things get turned out and gets moving in the right direction. But, there's a lot of bumps, and we'll have to just get through that, and hopefully they can move forward and actually become more productive, because right now just the stuff going through is not productive for our community.
Yeah, I think many people would agree with that statement. Well, Mr. Shoffstall, I appreciate your time, and we will reach out to you later, and we'll follow up later if there's anything else you want to add to this in the future going forward. But let's all hope and pray that cooler minds can prevail here, cooler heads can prevail, and people can start working together towards the main focus, which should be recovery from this tornado.
Yes, I thank you.
Thank you. 3